Today is International Women's Day. And so I thought it would be appropriate that today we remember and give thanks to God for some of the great women in the Bible. We'll begin by looking at Sarah, the wife of Abraham. Sarah, throughout her whole life, was barren, unable to have children. And yet, at 90 years old, God gave her the ability to give birth to a son named Isaac. Isaac and his descendants would become very numerous. They would become large. They would become the nation of Israel. And so, if we think of Abraham as the father of Israel, we should also think of Sarah as being the mother of Israel. We also want to remember Rahab, a prostitute who lived in the great walled city of Jericho. It was during this time that the Israelites were ready to conquer Canaan and get settled in the promised land. Before they did that, they sent spies into the city of Jericho. Rahab actually was affected by this. She came to faith in God. And so she actually protected the Israelite spies from danger. When city officials came looking for the spies, she hid them and gave them a safe way out of the city. When the walls of Jericho came crashing down and the Israelites came in to conquer the city of Jericho, Rahab and her family were spared. Rahab would actually go on to marry an Israelite man, and Rahab the prostitute is in the family line of our Savior Jesus. We also want to remember Deborah, the female judge in the Old Testament. The judges were these great heroes who would help Israel conquer their enemies, and the judges would also bring the Israelites back to God. And Deborah did just that. God used Deborah to help the Israelites defeat their enemies and then bring Israel back to God. We also remember Ruth, a Moabite woman who married a Jewish man. And even though her husband died, Ruth remained faithful to her mother-in-law. She would even go on to leave behind her family, her friends, and the false gods of the Moabite land and accompany her mother-in-law back to Israel. Ruth would eventually go on to marry another Jewish man by the name of Boaz, and Ruth and Boaz are the great-grandparents of King David. Ruth also is in the family line of our Savior Jesus. We also want to remember Esther, the Jewish woman who became queen over a foreign land. And God used Deborah as queen to protect the entire nation of Israel from utter destruction and annihilation. And if we're going to talk about women in the Bible, we have to make mention of the mother of our Savior Jesus, the Virgin Mary. She gave birth to our Savior. She nurtured him. She raised him. What an important woman she is. We also want to remember Eunice and Lois. Eunice was the mother of Timothy. Lois, the grandmother of Timothy. Timothy did not have a believing father. And so Eunice and Lois taught Timothy the true Christian faith. And Timothy would actually go on to be one of the very first pastors in the Christian church. We remember and give thanks to God for all of these great women. And that's only a small list of the great women in the Bible. But today I also want to give thanks to God for all Christian women. Christian women who have exemplified beautiful Christian service. Christian women who have taught their children about the true faith. Christian women who have taught their children and the people in their lives about Jesus and forgiveness through his life, death, and resurrection. Today on International Women's Day, we give thanks to God for all godly women, the past, present, and future. If this devotion was a blessing to you, then please like and share with others. God's blessings to you all.